Hey, welcome back. We are here to do another sample section. So the sample section, of course, is me trying to chip away at all the Kindle samples I have on my iPad. I have a lot. I think 200 plus at this point, and I keep getting more because people keep suggesting books and posting lists of like, hey, what are your top books of 2024 and such. So I keep getting more Kindle samples. This will never, ever end, which I guess is good for a YouTube channel. So the book that my big old list of random Kindle samples gave me was this one, The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. Now, judging by the cover, I know you're not supposed to, but I do. Judging by the cover, it looks very adventurous. We got a small ship that's being tangled by the tentacles of what looks like a kraken down under the water. Very stormy. The yellow and blue at the top is not quite a map, but it does evoke the colors of a map. I noticed the pale yellow and the pale blue for some reason makes me think of a map, but then when you look at it, it's clearly not. So that may have been very, very intentional to try and mislead us and think like, oh, well, all right, there's a map in the background. But when you look at it, it's not a map. It's not anything that you'd recognize. So maybe there's something going on there. I don't know. The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi, the title of it gives it a very Middle Eastern feel. It gives it a very sort of Adventures of Sinbad feel, maybe. Or the 1001 Nights, for example, maybe. So that's possibly what we could be looking forward to. And of course, the whole cover just exudes adventure. So let's see what it is. I'll be right back after I take a look at the sample. See you in a minute. Okay, let me say right now that I was reading through this and I forgot to take notes for a lot of it, which is a fantastic sign for any book. When I'm too engrossed in the actual story to stop and take notes, score. All right, great job. It's a fun read. I really like it. I like the voice. I like the style of it. I think, it sounds really cool. But let me get into it. It starts off with a dedication for all those parenting in hardship during pandemics, through climate crises under occupation, for those struggling to keep food on the table, juggle multiple jobs and impossible childcare, for everyone who set aside their own dreams, briefly or forever, to lift those of the next generation. I'm not quite sure how that dedication plays into the story yet. But hey, who am I to argue? It comes with a map. Huzzah! I love maps. This comes with a map of the Great Indian Ocean. I can't quite get it to pull up. There we go. Map of the Great Indian Ocean, it says here. And it's got the Arabian Sea. It has the Persian Gulf. It's got the Horn of Africa, all that good stuff. It's very, very sort of old-timey style map that I'm a big fan of. It looks really nice. And it's got an epigraph from Sinbad, the fifth voyage of Sinbad the Sailor. And the epigraph reads, I clung to the plank of wood, my only refuge in the storm-tossed sea, and berated myself, saying, Sinbad the Sailor, you never learn. After each of your journeys, the first and the second, the third and the fourth, the fifth, all worse than that which preceded it, you swear to God to repent and give up these travels, and every time you lie, swayed by greed and adventure, to return to the sea. So take the punishment that is coming. You deserve it. I suppose anybody who's ever, it's not quite the same scale, but anybody who's ever prayed to God to eliminate a hangover, I'll never drink again, kind of understands that. But it does tell us a lot about where this novel is coming from, that it is coming from a very specific Middle Eastern adventuring tradition. Of the idea that the adventure, the call of the sea, all of that is so much more important maybe than your own personal wants and desires. And it's sort of getting a setup for who I think is the main character. The table of contents is weird because some of the chapters are numbered, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, but then there's also sort of interspersed amongst them is a letter or an expose or a missive or something. So I'm not quite sure how that all works out because the sample does not go that far. So the structure looks interesting just from the table of contents. I'm not quite sure what it means. There is an author's note where the author basically is just making a few notes about the language and the sort of terms that she's using. It didn't seem really important to me. And then it begins with the kind of invocation that you would expect Islamic literature to begin with. In the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate, blessings upon his honored prophet Muhammad, his family, and his followers. Praise be to God, who in his glory created the earth and its diversity of lands and languages, peoples and tongues. In these vast marvels, so numerous a human eye cannot gaze upon more than a sliver. Is there not proof of his magnificence? And when it comes to marvels, let us delight in the adventures of the Nahuda Amina al-Sirafi. Yes, that Captain Amina al-Sirafi. So there's our title character, and she is legendary. From the very beginning of the book, we are told she's a legendary figure. So now the rest of the book, of course, has to live up to that. And honestly, I think it does. We don't really know who she is. We start her off with her saving a couple of guys from raising a demon in the water. She's masquerading as just sort of a boatswoman, like, oh yes, I'll take you out to the water. And then once the demon rises up, she hulks out a bit. She's very tall. That's something that gets repeated throughout this. She's a very tall, very strong, burly woman with a gold tooth, which is almost legendary. And that in her lifetime, people are telling stories about the Captain Amina al-Sirafi. That her legend has spread across the world. People know who she is, but we eventually find her living with her daughter in just a little beach hut and trying to live a normal life. And then this wealthy woman comes in and says, I need you to help me with a kidnapping. To rescue someone who's been kidnapped, not to kidnap someone, just to make that perfectly clear. And yeah, you get the vibe that al-Sirafi is sort of one of those heroes who she's done everything she wants to do. She just wants to live a simple life, and they keep dragging her back in. The legend of her as a captain is so big and so widespread and so well known that she knows she can't have a normal life. She'll never be able to have a normal life. No matter how hard she tries, people are going to keep finding her and coming up to her and maybe in this instance offering her a job, maybe challenging her. But either way, this life adventure that made her famous is something that she's never going to be able to get away from, much like Sinbad. And will she make the right choices when she's there with her daughter? Is she going to choose to stay and say, nope, I've had enough adventuring. I'm going to live with my daughter. We're going to be perfectly happy. Let me just tell you, big rollicking adventure novels don't start that way. Big rollicking adventure novels don't start with, I'm just going to stay home and thatch the roof. Big rollicking adventure novels start with, I think I have to do this. Just this one last job, and I'm done. This one last job. And inevitably it spirals out of control. It's never one last job. You know the hero type. So, like I said, I stopped taking notes at a certain point. I think it was after after she saved those two guys and she was fighting off a sea demon is where I forgot just to stop and take notes, which is a great sign. And I think after I finished the sample, I said out loud, I got to get this book because it was really engrossing and fun. And I liked the language and the voice of the narration was really good. I think when the woman comes to hire al-Sirafi to help with dealing with the kidnapping, they do that wonderful sort of back and forth sort of thing where we know, al-Sirafi is pretending to be just a normal peasant woman, and the old woman is trying to basically get her identity out of her. And we know that she knows, and she knows that she knows. And it's a whole big thing where they're trying to very, very gently say, I know who you are, and I'm going to hire you for this job. And I know you probably don't want to do it. And I know that this is very dangerous, but I'm going to hire you for this job. So that's kind of where the sample leaves off. So I am really interested to see where this goes. And it does look like a rollicking tale of ocean adventures. Interesting thing, I'm not a huge fan of ocean adventures and sea stories. It's never been one of my big niches for some reason. But does that mean I'm not going to read it? Heck no, of course I'm going to read it. It sounds like a lot of fun. So yeah, I think this one I will buy. I will say right here, you can hold me to it. I will buy this book based on the sample because it looks like a lot of fun. If I can find a Dead Tree edition with a cover that's lives up to the cover that we see here, then I might even buy that Dead Tree edition. We'll see. But that kind of depends. I'll read it electronically first, and then we'll make our decisions. So, yeah, this is wild. This is wild. The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi. I think I would definitely buy this book. It's the sample itself was a lot of fun to read, and it was very engrossing, and I enjoyed it. So there you go. If you've read this book and you would like to chime in and tell me what you think, am I right? Am I right in just how good it seems to be? Do I have any of my predictions seem to be on point? If you know anything about it and you want to say something, then get in the comments and let me know. But In the meantime, thank you very much for stopping by, and I will see you next time.